Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your Day 1 keynote host, Julie Rain.
Sorry about that. You know, I'm just so used to sitting out on stage. I keep looking around for Brad Behrens to pop out of nowhere and introduce all of us. But it's a year of changes. I mean, you know, Brad's not here. You've got me instead. Mayor Bloomberg is no longer the mayor of New York City. What is the world coming to? I'm here to welcome you, excited to do so, to AdTech New York. For those of you like me who have been coming for what seems like a gazillion years, you may be interested to know that this is the 15th AdTech New York. So let's hear it for the AdTech people who are here. 15 years, right? It's great. We have awesome content planned, both in the breakouts, on the keynote stage, also on the floor. They always do a little bit to switch it up every year, so I think you're going to love it. But without further ado, because you didn't come to hear me talk and jump out from the middle of the audience, and thank you for playing along out there, we want to get right to the show. So I want to introduce first Jeff Ramsey, who's the chairman of eMarketer, and he is going to regale us with the state of our industry. Jeff? Thanks.
So, are we ready to have some fun? Let's try that again. Are we ready to have some fun? Good. I'm here to talk to you about a reality check with M&A, and you're probably wondering, Jeff, M&A, what is this, VC stuff, mergers and acquisitions? Actually, no, I'm talking about something even more important, which is money and attention. Money and attention, both from the marketer side, where they're spending their attention and their money, and also on the consumer side. But the fact of the matter is, I only have 12 minutes, speaking of attention. So I would suggest that you all strap on your seatbelts, because we're going to go through more slides and information in 12 minutes than you think is humanly possible to absorb. So let's get right started with consumer attention. We all know that there is fragmentation out there, fragmentation rules. Today's digital consumer, as we know, is everywhere and yet elusive. Elusive in the sense that we kind of have a sort of fuzzy picture of them as they go across devices and platforms, social media, etc. But we really don't have a bead on where they are and what their intentions are, so we need to do a better job of that. As we delve into fragmentation, we realize there's intense fragmentation within digital channels. The numbers up here are US-based. We can also show them globally, but let's just focus on the US, and what we see is, for example, that 44% of the entire population of the United States has a smartphone. I'm sure just about everybody in this room has one. About 70% of moms have them. 60% plus of all 18 to 44-year-olds have them. But if you look at the entire population, it's 44%. But then within that, you have different operating systems, right, that you have to figure out, does my app work on these different devices, etc. Yes, BlackBerry is still up there. Then there's the mobile web versus apps. And right now, a lot of the time and attention seems to be spent on apps, but you also have to consider the mobile web. And then if you break it down further, what people are doing on their phones, all kinds of different activities, from games, shopping, commerce, video, and social. And if we speaking of video, I mean, if you think about multitasking, who on this planet anymore simply watches television? Just purely watches television. We've done the numbers. We've looked at a number of different sources. 4 major sources globally and in the US suggest that about 80% of us are, while watching TV, are doing something else. A lot of that is offline activity, like going to the bathroom, getting a beer in the fridge, conversing with our spouse, whatever. But then if we look at the numbers, crunch them down even further, we find that about half are engaging in social media activity while watching TV. That's borne out by a number of research companies. eMarketer looks at every research source available on every topic to try to figure out what's really going on. And as you can see, there's a consensus around 50% of us doing social media activity while watching TV. The outlier here is Credit Donkey, but then you have to question, Credit Donkey? Look at the source very carefully, folks. It's important. We further analyzed the data and found that about 16% of people are engaged in real-time social media activity that is related to the content that they're seeing. And that is a big opportunity, of course, that Twitter is trying to take advantage of. And again, that's borne out by a number of research companies, right nicely converging around 16%. Big news, of course, is where are consumers spending their time today? After looking at a lot of different data, our forecasters have come to the conclusion that this year, in 2013, people in the US at least are spending more time with digital devices, across all digital devices, than they are with television. 45% of time is spent with digital. And if you break that down, 19.8% is going to mobile, which we define in this case as tablets and smartphones and phablets, anything that can be moved around. And online is at 19.5%. So what that works out to is that across smartphones and tablets, we're spending about 2 hours and 21 minutes daily with these devices, and we're only spending about 2 hours and 19 minutes with desktop PCs. If you take nothing else away from this, it's that what we are saying is that versus television and total digital, mobile is now a little over half of TV and a little over half of total digital time. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Really, Jeff? Are you serious? Is that possible that mobile is now half? Well, you might think our analysts or our forecasters are either stoned, stupid, screwy, or perhaps sponsored by the mobile ad community. But it's neither. In fact, I will assure you that our forecasters have looked at 40 different sources, crunched the numbers, looked at 400 different data points, discerning different definitions, methodologies, and biases, etc. And yes, we've come to the conclusion that it's about half of digital time spent with mobile. We cannot end the mobile story without talking about commerce, and these numbers actually surprise me how quickly this has taken hold. If you look at m-commerce today, people buying stuff on their phones or tablets is now 16% of all e-commerce in the United States, 16%. And we're looking at a 2.7x growth rate over the next few years to over 1/4 of all e-commerce dollars happening on a mobile phone or a tablet device. And the influence factor is huge. Now we're going to switch gears for a second and look at marketers. Where are they spending their money? Well, of course, we're here at AdTech, so we wouldn't be surprised to find out that digital reigns supreme with a higher growth rate than any other media channel out there. Basically, double-digit growth that we're projecting for the next few years to 2015. Right now, in the US, digital is about almost 25% of all media ad spending. In the UK, it's even higher. Globally, it's a little lower, but US is like #2 market in terms of that, and it is growing to 31% by 2017. When that happens, we can all break out the champagne and have a party. If we look at next year, in 2014, there's a number of numbers out there. Our guess is that digital ad spending in total will grow 12.6% this coming year. There's a few outliers on the low and the high side, some that are kind of in between, and then there's a whole pack of us that are in the 12 to 13 to 14% range, so you can believe it's true. Programmatic, everybody is talking about programmatic. It's coming on gangbusters. Right now, it's about 19%. Next year, 22% of all display media ad dollars will go through real-time bidding. That will grow to almost 30% by the year 2017. Some other researchers put that a little lower, a little higher, depending on who you want to look at. The fastest growing categories, in the US at least, for digital, social media is up there at 37%, now equates to about 10% of all digital dollars spent. Then there's online video growing at 41% this year, and the big story, of course, is with mobile growing at 95%. Just a quick word on social media. The penetration of social media is about 67% of us go to any social network, right? And about 60% of us go to Facebook, which is the 800-pound gorilla. And by the way, Facebook has 69% of all social media dollars in the US. Twitter, while it's going gangbusters, and we all see the IPO story unveiling, is only at 15% of the entire internet population. You've seen some other numbers out there. Some of them are higher, some of them are lower. The outlier, once again, I'm sorry, Credit Donkey, please, let's move on. Here's the biggest story, though, within digital. We are predicting at eMarketer that next year, in 2014, we've seen desktop rising, but it will peak in 2014 and actually start to decline thereafter. Not precipitously, but it will start to decline. Why? No big surprise, because of the ascendancy of mobile. Mobile is growing gangbusters. And in fact, when researchers ask marketers what their plans are with mobile, 60 to 80% say, yep, we're upping our spend with mobile. 95% growth rate is what we are predicting for this year, double-digit thereafter. We are at the highest end of the predictions for mobile ad spending, but I can assure you that in just a few short months, we'll see other researchers who start to come over the top of us. Our numbers won't change, but they probably will, and we'll end up in the middle of the pack. We're looking at 7x growth in U.S. Mobile ad spending over the next few years to $31 billion. Let's break that out and give some perspective in terms of how big mobile is in terms of the total digital pie. 12% in 2012, 1/5 of all ad dollars this year. And then mobile slice of digital in 2014 grows to 1/4. And then just a little over half of all dollars, 51% in 2017. And you all know it's moving in that direction, of course, because Facebook in their latest earnings call said 49% of their total worldwide dollars go to mobile, and Twitter even beat that with 70% in the last quarter. Do not underestimate Google. Almost half of U.S. mobile ad dollars go to Google, and they have 76% of the U.S. mobile search market. Worldwide, Google owns 1/3 of all digital ad dollars, so do not underestimate them. Where are marketers spending their attention? It's no big surprise they're spending a lot of time poring over data, big data, smart data, data of all kinds, and it's giving them a headache. And in fact, the research suggests, I could show you dozens of sources on this. This is a worldwide study that shows that 34% of companies aren't using any form of marketing attribution, not attributing the impact of different media across channels, offline and online. They're simply in the dark. 44% is what Forrester says that figure is. 18% are doing some kind of custom approach to multi-channel marketing attribution. And I'm sorry to say 45% are doing it, but only first or last click, which I don't think I need to tell you is absolutely ridiculous if that's all you're looking at. We cannot look at the last search click and say, well, all the media weight should go there because that's where all the action is. Branding happens over time. IBM did a further global study and found that there's a difference between leaders and so-called others, which I would equate to laggards. 40% of leaders are doing multi-channel attribution. The challenge is, and the opportunity is, to harvest cross-screen identities based on data from consumers, from their mobile activity, their video activity, and their social activity across platforms and devices. And only by doing so will we get a clearer picture of what's really going on with the consumer. Make no mistake, smart use of data across platforms and devices is the only way to keep up with rising consumer expectations, especially with mobile and especially with the younger generation that just absolutely expects you to keep up with them wherever they go. And hopefully you've been able to keep up with me, and with that, I will say thank you. Enjoy the show.
Good job. Okay, thanks, Jeff. Oh, I'm glad to see New York has woken up. I was worried this morning. At least we don't have a hurricane today, so we are doing well this year. This next piece that we have is, I think, one of the most exciting traditions that we have at AdTech New York, and that is where we recognize and provide an award to somebody who we think has contributed mightily to the thought leadership and to the digital marketing arena in general. And while I'm not allowed to tell you who it is, I have to introduce somebody to tell you who it is. I will tell you that I know this person. It's well-deserved, and it's really exciting to be able to be amongst, I think, your peers and the people who appreciate it most, to be able to be recognized. So with that, to do a proper introduction, I'm introducing Rich Lafergie, who is the general partner at Archer Advisors, to be able to create this warm welcome and award. Rich? See, I didn't give it away.
Thank you, Julie. Well, this is a very well-deserved award, and it's my great pleasure to introduce one of the very first pioneers of internet advertising, Jonathan Nelson, CEO of Omnicom Digital, to receive AdTech's Industry Achievement Award. Even though Jonathan runs the world's largest interactive services company in our industry, his name might not be one that you know, but you should, because many of the things that we use in digital advertising today started 20 years ago when Jonathan and the agency co-founded Organic Online, started a bunch of our practices. In 1994, he had a central role in the big bang of internet advertising. That's when he created half of the first banner ads that ran on Hotwired for AT&T. Not only that, but he also created the content management system that would run the Hotwired site so the ads could actually run. So Jonathan had to create the CMS so that the first online ads would ever run. And finally, Jonathan helped train the Hotwired ad sales team to sell the ads to AT&T. A year later, he and the Organic team created the open source Apache web server, which is now used by most websites. Jonathan would later create the first auto and travel websites, as well as the first sites for Nike and McDonald's. In 1996, Organic started the data mining analytics company, Accrue, that would later go public with Jonathan as the CEO. Now, this was long before analytics became a staple in agency services. And as creative director back in those early days, he created the Yahoo logo, which was recently retired. Jonathan and Organic had a decidedly different approach because they built and coded the technology that they used for clients. This Silicon Valley approach was very different than the Madison Avenue practice of partnering or buying up technology companies. Organic went public with Jonathan at the helm, later to be acquired by Omnicom. Under Jonathan's leadership, Organic and Omnicom Digital quietly became one of the most powerful and knowledgeable forces in our industry, both in the technology itself, the partners that they work with, and the clients that they served. Most recently, Jonathan founded Omnicom's Acumen programmatic agency, the largest agency trading desk. With the coming merger with Publicis, Jonathan will preside over a digital enterprise he couldn't have imagined 20 years ago. His Silicon Valley approach of technology innovation sets Jonathan apart and has served him well. Can't wait to see what he's up to in the next 20. Please join me in congratulating a true internet advertising pioneer, Jonathan Nelson, CEO of Omnicom Digital.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you, AdTech. It's quite an honor to stand up here. It's very surreal. This all started with me behind two card tables 20 years ago in a spare bedroom in my apartment, and to sit and see all of you out here right now is a huge honor. I just wanted to say a few thanks, not bore you with a long speech, but there are many, many, many shoulders and minds that that I acquired from and stood on in order to put me here. I wanted to thank all of the folks at Organic, some of the best and brightest people that I've ever worked with. I want to do a few shout outs to some companies that may have gone along, but were really, really major companies back in the early days, 20 years ago when we started, companies that you may not have heard of, but really laid the groundwork for everything that we do in our industry today. Companies like Red Sky and Think New Ideas, Spray, Interactive Solutions, Agency.com. I'm proud to say that Razorfish is still around, but Razorfish in its early incarnation. I want to do a shout out to the next mountain to climb for us, which is Publicis, and very much looking forward to merging and bringing together some of the best and the brightest talent to do the absolute best work that we possibly can for our clients. And I would be remiss without talking for a moment about some people that helped put me here, which I have three main mentors. Mort Meyerson, who is the Chair and CEO of EDS Systems and Perot Systems, really helped me along quite a bit. Warren Hellman, who passed away 2 years ago, massive financier, huge influence on my life, and the CEO of Omnicom, John Wren, who has helped me endlessly as I've tried to get my work done. And I just want to leave with a note saying I've been doing this for 20 years. This month actually is my 20th anniversary doing this, and it's amazing to watch the growth and the acceleration of our business. It's as much fun and it's absolutely as interesting right now with the multiplicity of mobile devices, tablets, televisions, desktops on a global basis. This industry is as much fun now as it was then, and I'm very, very much looking forward to the next 20 years. So thank you very much for the award, and have a great show.
That was really exciting to watch. As I was telling Jonathan, now that I can say his name, I'm not giving it away, backstage, he's like, so this is my Lifetime Achievement Award. What do I do now? Do I go and retire? And I was like, no, you're like a cat. You've got like 8 more Lifetime Achievement Awards to receive yet. So anyway, here's hoping that he sticks around and does some pretty cool things with that merger. Okay, now I think the real punch, the real soup up to our 2-day extravaganza here at AdTech is the introduction of our first keynote. Pretty exciting guy who has been, as we were saying, kind of laying low but doing some pretty cool things at a little company that some of you may have actually made some purchases from, last week during Halloween. Nestlé. I don't know, chocolate and candy first thing in the morning. I think it's a perfect combination. So without further ado, I will bring out the global head of digital strategy and marketing for Nestlé, Mr. Pete Blackshaw.
You both got what I eat. I love your buttery crust, but I love the meat just as much. Oh, baby, you both got what I eat. You got all my hot treats. You both make me complete. Oh, baby.
That was a recent YouTube video that our Hot Pockets team put together here in the U.S. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here. I'm an ad tech advocate. I think my first show was back in '97, so it's really nice to see old friends. Big shout out to my Nestlé colleagues who came in mass. Means a lot to me. Here's what I wanted to talk about our transformation at Nestlé. Nestlé is a characteristically Swiss company. We don't promote ourselves that much, and I wanted to use this kind of rare opportunity to kind of tell a little bit of our story about what we've been doing, where we're going. And I think given that there's so many vendors, suppliers, agencies in the room, I want you to think about how you can partner with us in that effort. So here's what I thought I would cover. A little bit of background on Nestlé. A few specifics on our digital ambition, where we see ourselves going. a few, and I mean a few because we have a limited amount of time, a few inspirations, and I've got a few related to Twitter. Just since this is Twitter week, I figured I'd kind of throw in a couple interesting examples. And then I want to focus most of the attention on the issue of organization, culture, and leadership. And at the end of the day, I think that's what really, really counts in terms of mobilizing and advancing this digital movement that all of us feel so passionate about. Sound good? All right. Okay. So a little bit about Nestlé. So who is this guy? This is actually the founder of Nestlé, Henri Nestlé. Pretty interesting story going back maybe 150 years, nearly 150 years, 1866. One of 14 children, didn't have kids of his own, but was acutely sensitized to the infant mortality rate. Comes up with an infant formula that was one of the first commercially produced. And actually one of the first early case studies was, success stories, was saving the lives of his neighbor's child who was unable to breastfeed. That was one of a number of innovations that the company has produced. Later on, the first milk chocolate, great location in Switzerland with all the cows. Later on, the first soluble coffee, the first freeze-dried coffee, and then if you go all the way up to today, a big focus on health science. We just started a new Nestlé Health Science division, which is really focusing on nutrition, health, and wellness, which is our current focus. And this is a sample of some of the products that we produce. I can't name them all, and I'm not even sure I know them all yet. There's quite a few of them out there. Let's highlight a couple interesting numbers. So a couple factoids, tweetable factoids. Okay, so we sell 1.2 billion products every day across the globe. Now, what's interesting is that a growing percentage of those products have digital linkages. In fact, we started one of the first kind of major QR code initiatives where a large percentage of our products will take you directly to everything from supply chain history to a whole assortment of information to really give consumers greater detail behind the products. On any given day, and this still blows me away, but on any given day, we are producing about 1,500 pieces of original content. Actually, on Facebook alone, if you actually add Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, the numbers go even more. And I'm not even counting the responses, the comments that we may add as community managers. And that is just a massive amount of work. It's also a very interesting opportunity because we can look across the playing field of what's going on to develop norms and benchmarks and the like. 50% of our Nespresso capsules are sold online. Big business for us, and a lot of experience in going direct to consumer. And many of you have probably seen our boutique stores, which are kind of like the Apple Store. On Facebook alone, maybe about 180 million fans, growing at about 5 to 7% every month. And I'll explain why that's an important number, because it's how do we really operationalize managing that. And here's the one I'm actually particularly proud of, is that we've got about 200,000 employees that are on an internal version of Facebook, an internal social network. And this is where things start to get really interesting in the large enterprise. Hold that thought. Now, my personal journey, this is my job, heading digital, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. You know, that said, very, very passionate about what I'm doing, and my roots go back to I co-led digital for another large CPG company before I started my own company that was kind of grounded on a passion around consumer feedback and expression. And, you know, the first business was called Planet Feedback. I started it in Cincinnati. Actually, my CFO, Betsy Cohen, is here. But I've always been very, very inspired by the consumer voice, the consumer control, the consumer power. It's both the opportunity and the challenge. And I learned a lot at Planet Feedback about what's really going on in the early notion of social media. One was that if you make feedback easy for consumers, you'll get a lot of positive love. Companies historically have made feedback loops really complicated. I also learned, as the business evolved, we ultimately became a company called IntelliSeek, and then Nielsen Buzz Metrics, which ultimately became part of Nielsen, that there's a lot of predictable talk drivers. There's a clear correlation between the way consumers talk in social networks and business processes. And this kind of inspired a book I wrote about 5 years ago. Basically, satisfied customers tell 3 friends, angry customers tell 3,000. And I've been obsessed with that. Now, about a year after I published the book, and this is before I got to Nestlé, but many of you are familiar with this, and many of you wrote about this, many righteously, I might add. We had what I sometimes diplomatically refer to as our teachable moment, and it revolved around 2 fundamental issues. Number one had to do with the supply chain issue that Greenpeace had big issues with. The other issue was poor execution of social media that made the issue a lot more complicated and worse and quite viral. And you can still see a lot of that if you search Nestlé on Google. And I was kind of hired in the wake of that particular issue. And I do find that sometimes it kind of, when companies have a bit of a teachable moment, so to speak, it can lead to some interesting choices. So elevated position in digital, but I actually report both to the CMO and to the head of corporate communications. And the power of digital is how it softens silos and provides a much more holistic view of what's going on in the organization. So when I got to Nestlé, some of the big questions that kind of flowed from that experience and others were the following. And I think these are just as relevant to all of us today. How do you scale community management? Just think about what I said earlier, 180 million fans on Facebook alone. How do you operationalize it? They have an expectation of a response, an acknowledgement, a level of engagement. We can't just throw the word engagement like peanuts at the ballpark. We have to measure up to that standard, right? Always on responsiveness, direct and indirect. Very, very tough for large organizations. How many of you have call centers that close on Fridays or aren't open on weekends? Most of you. We're still dealing with that. Consistent, local, global tone of voice. One of my biggest favorite slogans is all local is global. Wikipedia doesn't care. Search doesn't care. Everything crosses borders. It's complicated. Speed, agility, and small screen simplicity. Easier said than done. But again, in a large enterprise, how do you operationalize it? And then the other piece is kind of deeds and actions, not just words. We're all very good at kind of positioning the romance of social media, but there has to be substance behind it. There has to be, and consumers will know immediately if there isn't substance, they're going to call you out. And these are the issues that I found myself in my early days of the job thinking about, and we started to tackle it. And one of the first things that we did is we basically kind of raised our own internal bar, and we sort of said, listen, we're going to treat this as an opportunity, and our goal is going to be, within a few years, to be the leading FMCG leader in leveraging digital and social media to build brands and delight consumers. And we're going to do that through 4 fundamental strategies. The first is by embracing fundamentals. Hold that. I'll explain in a moment. If you go back for a second, I can go back. The second is media productivity. Some say media efficiency. External focus and innovation, and then rapid scaling, which for a large, radically decentralized company is both the opportunity and the challenge. So let's start with the fundamentals. Having had a couple tours of duties in large companies that have been trying to figure out how do they take digital to the next level, I've learned that clearly we need to kind of stimulate, we need to prime the pump, we need to generate excitement, but it can flame out really, really fast. And when I got to Nestlé, in fact, one of the things that really attracted me to Nestlé, they have a world-class brand building framework called Brand Building the Nestlé Way. It's based on this BB&W house, and it has a number of rooms. They're here. Inspire with brand vision and essence, creating engaging brand experience. And within each of those rooms, there's winning actions. And you could argue that these winning actions are kind of marketing period agnostic. In fact, they kind of apply as much to the post-digital era as the pre-digital era. And what we initially did is we just kind of took the fundamentals and asked ourselves, how does digital make it stronger? So you think about something like creating engaging brand experience. I mean, what could be more engaging than an online community or a really well-executed service application through a mobile phone? Know your consumer deeply. A lot of us talk about listening like it's a fundamentally new idea. Listening has always been very central to brand building. Yet we know in a digital world it takes it to the new level. So what we did, and I think this has really helped to kind of advance our efforts and kind of sustain it, get the proper investment, is just embracing, the core fundamentals. And I'm not the first person to say this, but it's very, very important to stay true to this. Now, what we did is with digital, we kind of kept it really, really simple. So from those fundamentals, we saw 3 pillars of our digital leadership. Listening, engaging, inspiring, and transforming. And again, as I said before, listening has always been a big deal. But we know in a digital world that the signals are, obviously, there's a much bigger volume, often more robust. So I think about the signals of listening, seeking, speaking, and clicking. Seeking is what is the database of intentions, tell us about unmet needs. Speaking, I believe the conversation is infinitely revealing of brand value. How do you translate those signals? Clicking, where do people go online? Zip this back here. Okay, sorry about that. I'm getting so excited. Engagement is a tough one. Easier said than done. We're not in a mass, we still have elements of the mass model, but we have to engage, we have to respond, and figuring that out. Inspiring and transforming is about changing the enterprise. So stick to your fundamentals. Number 2, media productivity. A lot of us are talking about paid-owned, earned media optimization. We've embraced it. I think we've taken it to a very operational level where we're working very closely with our media planners. We believe that the sweet spot is maximizing earned media off of your paid and owned touch points. And we're putting real discipline around that. And you can almost think about it as paying less, earning more. Now, we all know that it doesn't really mean paying less. I mean, maybe from a working media perspective, but there is investment we need to make in CRM and all the things that drive earned media. The other piece we put a lot of discipline around is how do we maximize conversion off of our touch points? So, conversion could be what we might call click to discover, like the QR code I mentioned earlier, click to share, or click to buy. And it's not that we're trying to look at a direct response medium. In fact, I think a lot of that mentality has probably damaged the industry, because sometimes we forget the 99% of consumers that don't click. But if a touch point, if a piece of advertising is so inspiring, we want to give them the opportunity to act upon it, and we're trying to build a lot of discipline to ensure that that takes place. Again, easier said than done, but for those of you in our agency universe, you're already working closely with us to make that a reality. Now, I wanted to give an example where some of this comes together. Many of you have heard about or saw the tweets related to the Android KitKat initiative. But I think there are 2 things that were going on. I think there was a very, very big think around the paid-owned earned optimization. And I think there's also kind of a think around how do you leverage the platforms to really create a different type of marketing. So let me run the video without giving more preamble and take a look.
For 78 years, we've enjoyed our break with the world's most iconic chocolate bar. But these days, we don't just stop and down tools to enjoy it. We're busy tweeting, buzzing, flicking, and tapping. Our breaks have become filled with tasks, channels, and technology. So how could KitKat be at the heart of our modern break? With each release of Google's Android named after a sweet thing, the world's first co-branded operating system was the answer. An extraordinary and unexpected partnership between Nestlé and Google that could put KitKat into billions of hands every day. An unprecedented partnership which uniquely builds brand equity for both partners. On September the 3rd, 2013, Android KitKat was announced to the world, and JWT's campaign finally went live. As soon as we launched on Twitter, the internet creaked, unlocking 9 months of top-secret global coordination, and in just 5 minutes, all the world's major media had covered the surprise story. 48 minutes later, we were trending worldwide, where we peaked at #1 and stayed in the top 10 for over 12 hours, so far generating over 1.3 billion Twitter impressions in every possible market, even those that don't sell KitKat. And our YouTube film became Nestlé's most successful viral ever, with over 2 million views in only 72 hours.
Every corner, every edge, every finger of every bar has been carefully considered and crafted to create a beautifully immersive and multi-sensory experience. And it really does taste as good as it looks.
Our award-winning website traffic grew by over 80,000%, creating spectacular sentiment for Nestlé and KitKat. We developed an on-pack promotion in 19 markets across more than 50 million KitKats, turning our wrappers into a media channel for Android, ensuring that the earned media value will be measured in billions rather than millions. And that's before Google even announced the features, or any manufacturer's ship, or any networks promote it to win the device war. So watch this space as everything gets bigger and bigger, getting into more news feeds, stories, memes, stores, tablets, phones, and pockets. Have a break. Have a KitKat.
What's interesting is just since they actually released the new operating system, I think we've added something like 100, 200,000 additional comments. So it's a bit of a case study in progress. What's interesting is that no money exchanged hands, and I think it really underscores the power of owned media. To some extent, the packaging is part of what really, really brought value to the table. And it's just thinking differently about your assets as you try to build your brand franchises. Another example, I won't show a video, but one that really stood out, this is from our Perrier brand, winner of 4 Cannes Awards. The Secret Place, kind of highly immersive online game. You can actually step into the personalities of each of the characters, high levels of engagement. But again, a kind of a different way of thinking about leveraging the technology. One of my favorite campaigns, I just got back from China a couple weeks ago, and this is our banana brand. This is peelable ice cream. And just a really good example of where the paid owned earned media kind of danced together really well. They even had, the stick actually had unique identifiable codes. I think there are about 300,000 different combinations that could be redeemable for game points. But really thinking about the full power of digital in every single respect. Now, I did want to cite just a couple examples from Twitter. I can't resist. And, we're still on a learning journey about Twitter, but we're very, very eager to test. I think a lot of the platform's very intuitive. We know it's driving a lot of word of mouth. We know it's material to, product launch and the like. But here's some examples of some tests. So one is, this obviously generated a lot of tweets. We have a joint venture with General Mills. So we, around our cereal brand, so our Nestlé Fitness cereal brand, did a partnership with the breast cancer prevention, and they came up with a very novel way of thinking about the convergence of the campaign and tweets. Let's watch.
Όλες μας έχουμε κάθε μήνα ένα ραντεβού ζωής. Το ραντεβού με την αυτοεξέταση. Κάποιες όμως το ξεχνούν. Γι' αυτό τα fitness έφεραν ένα νέο σύμμαχο στη μάχη κατά του καρκίνου του στήθους. Το Tweeting Bra. Το πρώτο σουτιέν που μπορεί να τουιτάρει. Κάθε φορά που το βγάζω, αυτό θα στέλνει αυτόματα ένα tweet. Και θα υπενθυμίζει σε όλες τις γυναίκες να κάνουν την αυτοεξέτασή τους. Στόχος, να κάνουμε το μήνυμα της πρόληψης γνωστό σε όλες. Ακολούθησέ το. Γιατί εμείς οι γυναίκες έχουμε να δώσουμε το δικό μας μήνυμα ζωής.
Credit to our Ogilvy agency for coming up with that. And again, still kind of quite a bit of online activity. Another one, I won't show the commercial, unfortunately, because of time, but I thought our Purina brand did a terrific job with their Tidy Cats brand. They had a spot many of you may have seen in the Emmys, 60-second spots around kind of this next generation, very, very lightweight kitty litter. What was interesting is a great example of driving conversion. So TV was still very, very important. Again, TV's not going away, but the call to action on Twitter kind of unleashed a huge conversation, and even some folks like Katie Couric got heavily involved, again, kind of unsolicited, but that's what you want. You want to drive a meaningful conversation, but a really strong synergy between what we were doing with TV and what we're doing online, and I think that's the future. Another example, and I'll post the link on my Twitter feed. I couldn't include the video, but Deep Focus, one of our agencies, did a superb job with our Tombstone brand where they literally produced 31 films in October, 6-second films related to the Tombstone brand, kind of on kind of like Monster Bite themes. But it was a very good example of kind of testing the waters on the short-form video format. And again, I think we still need to do a lot more testing, but early returns were very, very encouraging. Now I want to switch from some of the brand work to some of the other pillars of our work. The third area I mentioned in that ambition is external focus and innovation. We are passionately committed to being externally focused. I've been spending a lot of time with our executives in Silicon Valley, and just today we formally announced our Silicon Valley outpost. My colleague Moke Brodeur in the front seat is actually is heading that, so definitely send your questions his way, or if you have interesting technologies. But what we believe is that I think there's a whole flowering of innovation taking place in the marketing space. We want to be close to it. We want to be your partner. We're trying to figure out that model where large companies sometimes tend to go for the large, proven players, but how do we make sure that we don't miss some of those gems in the long tail? And we're building operations around that. You'll be hearing a lot more from us, but we think it's critically important to be very, very much in the pulse of the opportunities. With 2,000 brands, there's a lot where you can contribute. Now, the other part of the culture piece, and this is a part where I have the most passion, is that we've thought a lot about how do we bring some element of innovation culture, Silicon Valley, to Vevey. And we created about 22 months ago a program called the Digital Acceleration Team. And here's how it works. We would invite our best and brightest to come to our global headquarters for 8 months at a time. Part of the time would be dedicated to working on a business, community management, digital strategy. Part of it would be based on doing a lot of hackathons, and the rest would be just pure training. Let me show you a video of how this plays out, and then I'll kind of provide a little bit of context behind what's going on.
Hello friends, we Digital Acceleration Team welcome you to our digital journey. Leave your screens open, we are flying up with 11 marketeers who are passionate and during 8 months delivered 40 projects on listening, engaging, inspiring and transforming. Follow us.
As you can see, this is our modern and digital office. We are working on Google Plus project here, and many of our brands are going to launch their Google Plus page.
In addition to this, I would like to mention another great project on Maggie brand. We are talking about mobile solution that we develop in order to fulfill the needs of African consumers in a broader perspective, useful for emerging market too.
And now we are in US on the Super Bowl event, and you can see like Twitter is going crazy around TVCs and brands. What happened? It's the outage. Take this advantage for adaptive marketing and move forward.
We are back in Switzerland, where we had a very inspiring team meeting. One of the highlights, the content is key to mobilize our social communities. Content plays an important role to grow engagement with our consumers on our digital platforms. Remember, content is the king.
Definitely, listening or conversational monitoring is one of the most important skills I have developed. This will for sure help me when I will go back to Nestlé Professional.
Transforming is a key part of the DAT. I will bring back to France our digital strategic focus and dynamism, the learnings from my Google partnership and Wikipedia projects, for example, to keep delighting consumers and generate positive media.
Time to accelerate and embed the new power, fresh fuel represented by DAT 3. Learn more and stay tuned on Chatter.
So let me give a little bit of backdrop. What's going on? You saw a lot of the big screens. You know, think of the power of visual ROI. I mean, I used to work at Nielsen before. I've been a data wonk just enough to be dangerous. And I think we miss the opportunity to bring data to life. How do we use data to inspire? And that's been a big obsession of ours. And I think it's a huge opportunity. And it's amazing sometimes how people visit the DAT room and they connect dots. And what we need to do is kind of bring data to a new level that inspires and motivates and ultimately brings new qualities in our leadership potential. Another area is, content is internal currency. One thing we've been really trying to figure out is, employees are not that much different than consumers. We have short attention spans. We're busy as heck. We're multitasking. How do we create content related to what we need to do in digital in a way that's easy to consume, easy to share? So we built a multimedia lab where they're constantly, on any given day, we're cranking out a dozen or so, or any given week, a dozen or so videos on everything from how to do search and the like. And we're asking hard questions. Will employees take more than 5 minutes of instruction? Hard to say, but this is what the DAT team is trying to figure out. The other thing we've been thinking about as employees is content. We've actually been doing this big initiative where, we're one of the world's biggest food companies, and how do we leverage the passion and the expertise of our employees to create content? And so the DAT team has been doing a lot of video recipes to really kind of highlight food potential. And this is kind of from the most recent group, and we actually have one of the only food museums down the road. So we're using their kitchen to kind of create, new online content that's been going really well so far. Now, one of the things that the DAT members do is they do these hackathons. We love this notion of really fast decision making. Put people in a room and they have to have an answer. So what is this current DAT member, this DAT group doing? The previous one was DAT number 2. Here's the current one. Here's a slice of the types of questions that they're tackling as part of these speed projects. I think you'll be inspired.
Cracking the code, what healthy snacks mean to mom.
How can we communicate our privacy standards in an innovative way?
Pinterest, helping our consumers to discover the Nestlé products they love.
Helping Grato become one of the most engaging brands in the Football World Cup in Brazil next year.
Developing a digital scorecard for Zone Americas to help us grow.
How can we humanize the Nestlé brand?
Generate shopper insights through our digital tools.
Conducting unprompted listening on product quality. Getting a new brand started in digital.
Make sure your brand ranks well in organic search.
Now, one thing that's been really interesting, and this is something that I just didn't anticipate, and I hope this inspires you to test things, because what's interesting about the DAT, we created this in the global headquarters. What's happened in the last year or so is that it's kind of proliferated across the globe. Actually, take that back for a second. So we've already launched kind of DATs in India, China, and Italy. And we have about a dozen more planned across the globe. And again, never underestimate the power of internal viral effects. We tend to talk a lot about viral effects from a consumer side, but great ideas do move really fast in the enterprise if you're demonstrating the value. And I think this is one area where I've been pleasantly surprised. And keep in mind that all of these things help the other items move a lot faster, making that case for digital investment, getting the ad model right, figuring out engagement. You have to have these cultural foundations to get to the right place. Now, the last area I want to talk about is just rapid scaling of knowledge. So we've put a lot of attention around just how do we, almost, Nestlé's a radically decentralized model. How do we turn that into an opportunity? I mean, social networks are fundamentally decentralized. And what we've tried to do is just figure out kind of digital distribution vehicles, whether it's one of the biggest intranets, whether it's giving every employee the ability to blog, which is actually the case, whether it's kind of creating kind of our version of YouTube, Digitube, where we can create those videos and make them easy to distribute at relatively low cost. And then more recently, we've implemented a very large, kind of an internal version of Facebook. Many of you are familiar with Chatter. But what's interesting is that a lot of the rules that apply to what makes social networks so sticky for us in our personal lives, the same variables that make, multitasking moms spend so much time on Facebook can also apply to internal networks. And so this is an example where we have, where our internal network, we actually score our contributions. So we rank everybody based on influence. Are they posting? Are they commenting? Are they getting likes? This is important because if you're a busy, time-starved manager, you're going to gravitate to the content that's getting a lot of the traction. Just like when we read the New York Times, we go immediately to most emailed stories. And this has helped us to almost create a bit of a digital Darwinism within our network about who gets it, who doesn't, what content really works, and we're very, very early in the journey. I don't want to suggest to you that Nestlé has any of this figured out, but we are on a very aggressive process of turning over rocks and trying to walk the talk. I think that's the big challenge. Bringing a lot of these social and digital principles into our daily lives as employees to really kind of fulfill the principle of collaboration. And I'm very, very pleased with the progress we've made so far. The other thing I wanted to do, I just wanted to kind of close with an important word about leadership. People ask me all the time, well, when you talk to the DAT, what do you talk about? Do you talk about the subtle nuances, search optimization? And I say, no, I actually talk a lot about leadership, and I talk a lot about tensions. And there's a term that I've come up with that I call digital dualisms. And a dualism is kind of a tension point. They're kind of ostensible opposites. And I think leadership today, whether you're in the brand side or whether you're doing digital or just broadly, is about managing tensions in an era of uncertainty. And here's a few of them that I tend to highlight a lot when I talk to leaders at Nestlé. And you're probably familiar with a lot of them. Integration versus stimulation, ROI versus intuition, being an enabler versus a gatekeeper. I actually play both roles. Collaboration versus chaos. At what point does the Chatter platform or the Yammer platform become chaotic? How do we make sure that it works? And then, of course, formal versus informal power. There's no question that although companies have hierarchies, digital is kind of giving new voice to the people that are very, very close to the data and the insights. You think about something like stimulation versus integration. I was hired by Nestlé as a classic stimulant. How do you stimulate things, prime the pump? But we all know at the end of the day, we have to fold all of this into our core brand building processes. And so leadership isn't about one way or the other. It's about managing the tension. And what I've generally found, having looked across the landscape of achievers, overachievers, is that the folks that really get the tension are the ones that are winning in organizations. And I don't think that's just a Nestlé truth. I think that applies to the agency, vendor landscape, and the like. But again, think about these digital dualisms. How do you manage in the tension environment? And then my very last point, and I say this in every single speech, but this is my dad. He was in the advertising industry. I kind of grew up on jingles. And right before he passed away, about 5 years ago, I put a video of him on YouTube critiquing the Mad Men show, because he was an original member of, he was with BBDO in the early 60s. And I just thought, okay, I'll do this for my family. But I put this video up, and like everyone connected. I mean, I couldn't believe how many views I got, how many old buddies came forward. There was one of the cast members, Harry Crane, who kind of was like doing research on my dad. That tripped me out. But what it taught me is that, the things that we kind of do in our personal lives are so inherently relevant to the choices we make as business leaders. And yes, we have to be analytical. Yes, we have to work with numbers. But the intuition we bring from real relevant experience will help us lead a lot faster. And part of what we're trying to do at Nestlé is to find that balance. But trust your inner consumer, especially if things are feeling fuzzy and uncertain, or you're nervous about writing that memo to your boss. I have found that it always guides me to the sweet spot. So I thank you for your time. Again, it was a blast being here. I'm going to stick around for a while, and I hope to meet as many of you as possible. Thank you.
Good job. So before you all flood Pete on the side and across him, I'm going to also let you know that we are going to open up the rolling doors. You guys can move right to the floor. We have great breakout sessions that are going on all the rest of the day, and we will be back here on stage. Actually, I'm moderating a panel at 1 o'clock with some of our multicultural leaders, so it should be pretty interesting. So with that, thank you for your attendance this morning. We'll see you back this afternoon. Enjoy your day.